so.
LeCluck! That's my package! Yes! 2 points! Hey, listen up. Welcome to the second season of Iced Ravioli with me, Gallus Gee. To answer the question on why there's been such a long hiatus, obvious answer, I occasionally like to be a lazy bastard from time to time. Moving on to something else. Football.
A man's game. America's game. The only thing a real man gets up for on a Sunday morning. A sport where men can become legendary. For 48 minutes, men are hailed for assaulting others. The seemingly simple task of tossing and catching a ball is celebrated as if a woman is taking her top off. Quick beings make others fall over themselves like fat people at Black Friday. Overweight men can stand shirtless, proudly grunting, "Excuse me, miss, take it off." It's scantily clad women without charges of sexual harassment. A place where it's alright to cheer a 300+ pound man for hitting a being 2/3 his size to the ground so hard he thinks he may have made the wrong career choice. And it all takes place in glorious temples we call stadiums.
I love football. It's my favorite sport in the entire world. I will never give up on it. I will always support my team whether they win or lose. I don't hop on bandwagons, and I have the intelligence to understand that it is possible for my team to lose. I love football and everything there is about the game, but I love video games more. Video games and football have been together since shortly after the creation of our beloved medium. Beginning in the mid-70s with Mattel's classic football handheld, to the 80s with Atari Football, Nintendo's 10-Yard Fight, and Tecmo Bowl. The 90s were kicked off by John Madden Football, Sports Talk Football, and Tecmo Super Bowl. Closing off the century was Game Day, Madden, and Blitz, flying off the shelves faster than Gus Farad into a wall. Then 2K versus Madden, ending in 2005 with EA paying Scrooge McDuck amounts of money for exclusivity of the NFL and Players Association licenses. Yeah, I said ending. Outside of graphics, football video games have hardly progressed since ESPN NFL 2K5. I mean, sure, EA and Tiburon have made attempts at additional features that are usually forgotten by the next iteration of Madden, or they fixed bugs that should have been taken care of a few years prior, staying in bounds after catching a ball or gang tackling anyone. But when all is said and done, all the smoke is cleared. The millions of people who pick up Madden year in and year out are basically paying full price for a friggin' roster update. Now I know many folks would say I'm wrong about my opinion of Madden, but you'd have a better chance convincing me that I'm wrong about the fact that Rare hasn't made anything worth wiping my ass with since the masterpiece Conker's Bad Fur Day. Bottom line is this: we need a variety with our football games, and Backbreaker, Blitz the League, and BCFX ain't gonna cut it. We don't need a Madden Killer football simulation. That'll happen in 2013 should the NFL deny EA exclusivity and 2K can finally have another crack at it. But for the time being, EA needs to dig a beast from their back catalog of Sega Genesis Mega Drive games with the game that originally got me into football in the first place: Mutant League Football. I hadn't even heard of Mutant League Football till I opened it up Christmas '94 at the age of 6. And from whom? My grandmother. She bought the game for me because of my obsession with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the time, and she figured that meant that I loved anything that had to do with mutants. Now while her assumption was false, it did allow her to make the rare distinction of being a grandmother that bought her grandson a game that kicked all kinds of ass. This game is awesome. Take a look at the box. The logo has blood. There's blood on the main guy. He stabbed this lizard in the face. And there's a robot. And it looks like they're in space. Now take a look at the back. The quote on the back says, "Glory goes to the gory with blood on it. So yet another glorious game of the past. Mutant League Football had a seemingly simple formula to it. Take the gameplay of Madden and intensify it, and then parody the hell out of the NFL. Every team in the game was made up of 5 different mutants: robots, skeletons, trolls, aliens, and superhumans. Most of the NFL teams were parodied, but only a couple made any sense.
The Bears were called the Midway Monsters, and Green Bay were called the Ice Bay Bashers. The rest were just names that sounded kinda cool.
However, the player parodies yielded better results.
Bo Jackson was Bones Jackson. Phil Simms was Phil Slim. Reggie White was Reggie Fright. 49ers greats Montana, Young, and Rice being Magician, Tongue, and Scary Ice. William Fridge Perry's parody being my personal favorite. His was called The Bridge, which makes little sense outside the rhyme, but as a special nod to the 85 Bears, his parody played running back.
As far as intensifying the game, EA made a few obvious modifications, as well as giving the game some brutal additions. They sped the game up, added late hits, and gave tackles a thunderous effect. Now, while keeping the few audibles that were available in football games at the time, they also gave each team 4 additional ones called nasties, 2 for offense and 2 for defense,
to get an advantage by distraction with confusion, blackout, or ghosts through the superhuman abilities speed, rocket pack, strength, and electrocute, as well as committing a bit of murder with run blast, pass blast, bomb, skunk, rumble fumble, and what every football game needs, QB smash.
Ah, but the gore does not stop there, my friends. You can also kill the opposition by tackling or hitting them multiple times. There are death traps, as well as one more thing that I'll get to in just a moment. There are 2 interactions with the ref. First, if you're having a bit of bad luck and getting your ass kicked, you can bribe the ref to get a quick 5-yard penalty for various ridiculous things. Now, if you get one of these called against you, there's only one way to stop the ref shenanigans. Kill him. That is correct, boys and girls, you can kill the ref. The best part is that you can do it as much as you want. There's no limit at all. With a feature like that, it's a wonder EA even got away with it. But back then, people were too busy bitching about the home console release of Mortal Kombat, and the ESRB wasn't even created yet. It's also baffling why EA never made another one. It's time for us gamers to encourage them to make another one, starting right now. A simple fact about a remake of Mutant League Football is they could keep the same approach as the original, still using the Madden engine and intensifying it, but they need to go a little bit further this time. Starting with the obvious, they need to speed the game up a lot more, have lots more variation with the tackles, no penalties except for the ridiculous ones, late hits, as well as gratuitous amounts of gore, and obviously keeping the nasties. As far as the nasties go, all the ones from the original would be kept, but they would all have major modifications to them, as well as some brand new ones being introduced. An idea that would be kind of fun is if they used sports movie cliches and various ridiculous moments in NFL history as inspiration for modifying some of the nasties. For example,
with QB Smash, they should mimic the scene in The Replacements where Falco comes out onto the field and calls kick-ass, and then they proceed to beat the crap out of everybody on the opposing team. If a team uses strength on offense, the old cliche of the guy being so powerful that multiple players have to bring him down ought to be used.
Now, as for using ridiculous moments in NFL history, let's talk about Rumble Fumble. The best reenactment of this is the Holy Roller. Now, if you don't know what the Holy Roller is, pick up a book, kid. They need to come up with some original variations, though. For Blackout, each time it gets used, a different obstacle should get in the field of vision. Like have rafters from the top of the stadium fall down, or smoke come shooting across the field, or there's a big fireworks explosion in the middle of the field with fans attached. I've got a couple new but simple ideas for additional nasties. First one would be called Shockwave.
As soon as the ball is snapped, the defense jumps in the air and lands simultaneously, causing the offense to fall over themselves, giving the defense a great opportunity for some limb ripping or a sack.
The other one I call Ram.
Before the snap, a fan, cheerleader, or mascot runs onto the field, then the tailback grabs them and uses them as a shield to gain yards until the fan's body is destroyed.
They obviously have to keep the abilities to bribe and murder the ref. It never gets old. Now, while the intensified gameplay and gore will be fantastic features, for this game to truly be a modern classic, heaps of attention needs to be paid to the presentation of the game. Let's discuss the fields. While the camera will always be the same, each stadium needs to look completely different. One needs to have an ice scene to it.
Another one is set above a fire pit.
One needs to look like a bomb hit it.
And another one looks like a shithole. One needs to have a Thunderdome look while another one is floating in the sky to make use of the edges of the field.
As well as putting the various death traps in place. And as for placement of these, they need to look no further than the original game, as they found perfect balance as to where to put the death traps. Now before I talk about the fans, I've got one thing to say to all the developers of sports games. What's the big fucking deal, bitch? Few things in video games piss me off more than the lack of attention to fans. Seems there are only 10 or so different variations of them, and each team has the exact same fans, and they look like a damn N64 game. It completely takes away from the experience. If you're going to show us something other than the game at hand, at least make it worthwhile. In the area of what fans can do, Mutant League Football could actually show some of the stuff that fans occasionally do. For example,
Drunken fist fights, puking, people getting tased, streakers, girls flashing, and girls fighting.
any ridiculous thing that they can think of or they've heard of, just as long as there's over 100 different variations and no team has the exact same looking fans. With the designs of the fans, all that doodling back in high school will finally pay off. These things need to look like radioactive freaks. Anything they put down on a piece of paper will probably work.
Anthropomorphic elephant wolf? Sure. Some sort of rat pig dinosaur? Of course. Three-breasted alien? Hell yes. Half man, half chicken? Go for it.
Put it together, give it detail and an engine, and then boom, tough acting to acting. Yet another irritation with sports games these days are the commentators. They're so damn boring. The fact they can actually call what happens on the field just isn't enough anymore. To fix this, Mutant League Football needs 3 commentators. 2 in the style of Greg Proops and John DiMaggio from Mad World, guys that enjoy the carnage on the field, making quality jokes about it, and giving the appearance that everything on the field, while brutal, is completely normal. The 3rd commentator should be a parody of John Madden himself.
A heavy guy placed in the role of straight man to the others, while taking everything way too seriously and saying nonsensical crap that almost makes sense.
Every team in the league has to be parodied, and their names need to be a lot more creative than just rhymes this time around. If they want to throw in some of the crazy ones from the original, like the Techies or the Trolls, that's fine and it adds to the fun, but the game would be incomplete if not every team in the NFL got their due. Since the game will be 9 versus 9, not every player in the league has to be parodied. But the ones that do get parodied need to have distinguishable features. Like give Jared Allen his deceased mullet, may it rest in peace. And give Troy Polamalu his long locks. You know, simple no-brainers like that. For the design of the players, they need to be a bit more practical than the fans. Not so much doodles, still crazy, but not as random. As I stated before, the original had 5 mutant variations.
And minus the robot, those should be kept.
But there should be enough designs to distinguish each player in the game.
Like various alien types, lizards, dinosaurs, wolves, and hell, have evil variations of the team's mascot.
Finally, the gore. In Madden, there's stamina. In Mutant League Football, players will bleed, lose flesh, and limbs will fall off. Obviously, the amount of damage done to each player will depend on who it is and how the hit was done. If it's a basic tackle, almost no damage will be done. If it's a blindsided tackle right after a receiver catches a ball, then obviously a lot more damage will be done. And if it's not the first time, then a limb might fall off. Which leads to a couple other things that need to be figured out. Y'all might not agree with this, but the death and killing should be adjusted. Players aren't necessarily killed, but maimed. Meaning that if they're torn to bits, they can still recover from it. Depending on what limbs get lost is reflected the same way as an injury is in Madden. A torn off arm would be the same as a broken one, and if an arm is completely destroyed, then it'd be the same as a torn one. How would they recover though? Why not something that would be prominently shown? They should use the old sci-fi cliche of the bathing tube. It's an easy fix and one that makes a hell of a lot more sense than that steroid injection debacle from Blitz the League. Refs, however, need nothing changed to them. They still get what they deserve and are permanently done in. Classic! Now, judging by how EA does business these days, I could see them respectfully bringing back Mutant League Football. There's a huge demand for a new football game with the potential of the lockout at the end of this year. They'd be fools if they're not working on it right now. Well, cluck cluck, bitches. Grab your old games, clean them, blow them, and play with them. Later.